Hello, everyone. Well, we are back, and today's topic is actually very interesting. Can cannabis help women going through perimenopause, menopause, and beyond? To
Mhm.
talk about this interesting topic, we have MD. The credible information that you can think of from anyone else in the world, for that matter. We have Dr. Bridget Williams. She is MD, family physician, and a cannabis educator and an expert. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to
Yeah.
have this conversation.
We were talking about is how we are going through perimenopause and this whole journey ourselves. And I
Mhm.
never thought of taking cannabis, to be honest with you. So I absolutely would love to hear the research, the evidence, and what you have learned, how cannabis can help women.
Absolutely. So being in this space ourselves, you start to look at things a little bit differently when it comes home, right? And so just for clarification, when we're talking about, let's just starting with the vasomotor symptoms that people experience, we're talking about those hot flashes. We're also talking about night sweats, heart palpitations, even changes in your blood pressure. Average age that we're talking about is about 51 or so, but things can start much earlier than that. And then, the symptoms can last anywhere from a couple months to a year to several years. So we have to be very conscious of what women are experiencing, and it can be very difficult depending on how often this is happening and what you're going through. So number one, what you're experiencing when we're talking about hot flashes specifically is really a decrease in your estrogen levels, right? And so as that your estrogen decreases, there's a change in your temperature dysfunction, and then you have a fast rebound that causes the hot flash itself. Now, quite often, what can cause this might be anywhere between, it's hotter outside, and so you don't temperature regulate as well, right? But then spicy foods, if you're a smoker, alcohol, a lot of caffeine, even a lot of stress, and I'll come back to that because that can be something. A lot of these things we can control, but then some of these things we don't realize we control, and we can make a big difference on. Sometimes it's just what your personal triggers might be, what your stressors are. Sometimes there are aspects of it that can be unique for individuals. And so usually when we're looking at this, 80% of women in menopause experience hot flashes. And so it's really important that we take a closer look. There is a new FDA approved medication that's on the market that is I always mess up the name. I think it's Veoza, that is hormonal and is specifically for the hot flashes themselves. So this is something worth looking at, because up until now, we've really been looking at estrogen or estrogen that is combated with progesterone to control this. But of course, utilizing estrogen itself can sometimes expose us more to breast cancer. And that's been a big issue, and even unopposed estrogen with uterine cancers or what have you. So women and the medical community has kind of pulled away from hormone replacement. I think, a lot of our parents, our moms probably were put on hormone replacement immediately, as soon as they hit a certain age. And we've really pulled back from that because of the cancer relationship that we've seen. So a lot of people are excited about the Veoza and seeing if that's something that might be helpful. How this works is that it is a neokinin receptor antagonist. So basically, it ends up working at the receptors in our brain and blocking the receptors that actually regulate the temperature regulation, so that it allows us to kind of stay cool a little bit longer, right? And so far, the responses have been pretty good to it. I don't know if you've known anyone yourself to try it yet, have you?
No. So yeah, no, I think that's really good. So what I wanted to actually you to touch upon is the
Mhm.
cannabis in particular. So
Yes,
we
absolutely.
we are familiar with the drug that has come, and obviously I have not tried it. And
Yeah.
the jury is still out there in the sense, like, it talks about a lot of other side effects.
Mhm.
But cannabis, for instance, has a lot of research on anxiety, stress. That's a few of the symptoms that perimenopausal women have,
Mhm.
and other symptoms. So, talk to us a little about how cannabis can help. Maybe not necessarily with hot flushes, which still the jury is still out, or
Mhm.
other symptoms that it can help as well.
Right. Absolutely. So, as we were saying that, our options are not great when we're talking about addressing a lot of these issues. And a lot of it really does come back to us kind of regulating and making changes in our own lives, including, people are familiar with the vitamin E, black cohosh using magnesium, but cannabis is a real option. And the reason is because cannabis can help with the sleep disturbances. It can help with the mood or anxiety issues that people might experience, even some of the cognition or brain that that women sometimes experience going through the different phases of menopause, including low sex drive as well. And so if you've not considered this as an option, I think it's something that people can look at. Now, the reason why, as you were saying, the jury is still out as far as hard research. However, what we do know for sure is that estrogen plays a role on the fatty acid amide hydrolase uh, compound that actually controls our endocannabinoids. Okay. And so estrogen will decrease that molecule, and it allows our natural endocannabinoids to be more active longer. Okay. CBD has that same relationship. Okay. So when we have low estrogen, we will have low endocannabinoids. When we have more CBD, we actually increase our endocannabinoids. THC mimics our anandamide, which is one of our endocannabinoids as well. So there's a very close relationship there. Using the THC or using the CBD can keep our endocannabinoid system working and more active and making us feel a little bit more like ourselves. And for some of us who may be apprehensive in using THC, CBD is a great place to start because it will balance out that endocannabinoid system and it will keep our endocannabinoids more active, and that brings about our body balance. Okay. So that alone can be helpful. As far as I mentioned earlier, that stress is a big part of this because CBD and THC, but CBD is really great with helping with the anxiety. It can help with the stress. THC can do it, but also in a different way. If we can lower that anxiety, if we can lower that stress level, then some of the hot flashes or symptoms that we experience are less likely to happen. So I encourage people to take a step-by-step process. What are you experiencing? Write it down. What is bothering you the most? Then start adding CBD as a starting point. Okay. So then be mindful of, I have this many hot flashes a day. I'm experiencing these stressors. Am I decreasing my alcohol? Like, what else am I doing in my life? And when I add the CBD, are my hot flashes decreasing because my anxiety is decreasing? Are my hot flashes or my symptoms improving because I'm using CBD and THC and my sleep is improving? A lot of what I do in medicine, and this is across the board, it doesn't matter why you come in, I will ask you about your sleep, because I truly believe if our sleep is a little bit better, everything gets a little bit better along with that. So look at your sleep, start with that, see if you can improve that. Make sure that you're well hydrated and you're decreasing the stressors. Add magnesium in there, right? Add vitamin E. A lot of people like the black cohosh as well, but see if you can use this in a way that can actively reduce the symptoms that you're experiencing and maybe helping with, there's a lot of things that we don't like about menopause, but I will tell you, between the hot flashes and the sleep issues, the brain fog is right there behind it. right? And so can we use it in a way that makes us feel more empowered and in control of our experience?
All right. So my last question, this is a quick 10-minute session that we bring, but my last question is, can I walk in, a CBD pharmacy and just pick it up myself and then, take it a little bit by myself, or do I need to consult a practitioner as far as the dosage of CBD?
Mhm. So I would say there's a little bit of both. You can go into a CBD store, have a conversation. Some of them are incredibly knowledgeable, some of them not so much. But you can start with a CBD product, a gummy, a tincture, what have you. And then I do recommend consulting. And the reason I say that is because when we're talking about minute differences that can really help, some of a cannabinoid physician can be helpful. Also, so there's a little bit of tweaks and changes that can make a difference. In addition to that, when we look at research, the research numbers that show improvement tend to be considerably higher than what you tend to see recommended on the shelf. And so I would be able to determine where you are with this. And I would walk you through this. And probably if you need higher doses, I could take a look at that and make you feel more comfortable with it, then more comfortable than you would feel doing that on your own. So doing consultations with a cannabinoid physician can be really helpful. Also looking at your other medications, and that's really the key. A lot of people can give you advice, but when it comes to looking at your other medications, what else you're experiencing, how to use that in combination, and sometimes maybe eliminating medications that you don't need, you really need a cannabinoid physician to do that.
All right. So, and I think the advantage of women going through a practitioner such as yourself, multiple symptoms happen to women who are going through perimenopause, not just stress and anxiety. It could be vaginal dryness, right? Low libido is one thing. Memory, I know I forget sometimes the small thing, and you don't want to get. So it's not just one thing. There are multiple things that happen, and then it helps, like, for consult someone like you, that the cannabis is little thing, but something else can also be prescribed.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, like, I formulate products, and so I have an intimacy massage oil that is high in CBD. Simple, so it's high in CBD, so that it can help with the vaginal dryness specifically, and it can also be stimulating, right? But then I also do a lot with the terpenes, and the terpenes are the essential oils of the cannabis plant. And if you're talking about mood and cognition and sharpness, I look a lot at limonene, which gives you that citrusy smell. And I also look at pinene, which actually gives you that pine smell and helps you with focus. Now, some people are sensitive to pinene. It makes them feel a little bit more anxious. If you have a history of really high anxiety or PTSD, pinene might not be your friend. But I'm able to kind of get that information from you and then make recommendations, not just regarding the cannabinoids, but also making recommendations as far as the terpenes as well, because that can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. And that's the complexity of going through perimenopause. Is there are so many symptoms. I mean, sometimes I think we women have been blessed, like, right from puberty, then fertility. I mean, it's like never ending. And if you don't take care of self, God forbid, osteoporosis. I mean, seriously, I'm trying to make it a little funny, but it's not funny. If we don't take care of ourselves, we could really end up having osteoporosis, memory issues, right? Heart health. Oh my God, and all these things, if we don't take care. So that's what we are trying to do with, support of experts such as yourself.
And there's so many things that we can do, and I'm not anti-pharmaceutical at all, but there's so many things that we can do to help ourselves that are not a pharmaceutical, that are more vitamin based, that are more supplement based, that it's not snake oil. It really can make a significant difference. I'm also very conscious of taking this time in women's life and making it a season of empowerment. And I think a lot of women, when they kind of hit this phase, they just feel depleted. They feel like, gosh, am I getting older? What's happened? Like, you feel so overwhelmed with all these changes. And my approach is that this is your season of empowerment. This is where your confidence can build, your sometimes your income is building, sometimes your personal relationships can be improving. This is a time to invest in yourself and be empowered by these changes. You no longer have periods. This is awesome. Okay, like, celebrate this and don't get trapped into a society that focuses way too much on youth. Like, this is your best time, and so I like to help women do that.
I agree with you. I personally, my opinion, I feel so much better now that I was in my 20s and 30s.
So
Uh, right. And from energy, from personality, from all that. And this is the time that I urge all the women who listen to us to really take care of yourself, empower yourself, rediscover yourself, rejuvenate, or whatever, refresh, reset, the whole thing. Thank you so much for joining me. You want to share your book or website?
Sure.
Or anything?
Absolutely. So this is our book one, Courage in Cannabis, #1 bestseller on Amazon. Book two is coming out in a month. So, I'm excited to share that when that comes out. But you can always find me on social media, Dr. Bridget MD, whether that's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, but also go drbridgetmd.com. Where you can learn a little bit more about what I do. And if you're interested in the women-focused products that I formulate, go to myembodylife.com.
Okay, well, send us this and we'll add it in the comments.
Sure.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.